have most people have money issues because they haven't made a decision. And here's what he said, and I like your comments on it. Decide that you're going to be rich. In order to be rich, you'll have to believe that one day you will be. According to a report, Buffett said, "I always knew I was going to be rich. I don't think I ever doubted it for a minute." He said, and then the comment is that make it clear to yourself, your family, your friends, that you have a commitment to becoming financially independent. Omar, I would dare say that 99% of the people on this call have never decided to be rich. Whatever that is in your mind, when I started out, rich was $3 million. Now I hear it's up to 5 million. Talk about that, Omar, and your decision that you're going to be rich, because there's such a social antagonism towards anyone that wants to be rich, as there's a default in them that's a problem that needs to be corrected if you want to be rich, especially in America today, where the rich are maligned. Talk about that, Omar, and when did you decide to be rich?
Well, I've always wanted to be rich. I know this is weird to say, but if you ask my brother and my parents and all that, growing up, we were not rich. We were, I would call it lower middle class America. And we had one rich uncle, Uncle Mo. He was rich. And about, as early as I could remember, kindergarten age, I remember visiting Uncle Mo in his mansion. And I was like, yo, this looks like a resort, a hotel. I didn't know what a resort was yet. I thought hotel. And so it's very clear we were not rich and Uncle Mo was rich. And so I looked at his life, and he just looked happier. And I know people are like, oh, when you're rich, you got more problems. I would argue that, when you're rich, you have less problems if you're smart. Now, if you're a jerk and an idiot, you may have more problems. But I decided to be rich at a very young age. I used to read books from Charles Givens. I don't know if you remember Charles Givens. He was this multi-millionaire that was on television all the time, and he had audio tapes, not 8 tracks. I'm not that old, and I remember like 9 years old begging my mom to order it for me. And it was like, I don't know, $100, which then that was a lot of money. And I would listen to all his audio tapes and I'd close my eyes and I would dream about getting rich. And everybody used to I'd watch the Jeffersons. You remember the Jeffersons with George Jefferson and, well, we're moving on up, And I related to that guy, George Jefferson. They even nicknamed me George Jefferson at home, okay? Because I used to tell them that one day I'm going to own a business and I'm going to get rich. I didn't know what kind of business yet because I was really young. I didn't even really know what a business was. But what I understood is George Jefferson owned a business. Nobody bossed him around. He was the boss and he was rich. So I remember just looking at new neighborhoods. When new neighborhoods would pop up, we would go looking at the houses. I remember when I was 18 years old, 19 years old, and I was able to drive, I would go drive in the rich neighborhoods and I'd drive around and I would tell myself and everybody else that would listen to me, I'm going to live in one of these neighborhoods one day and I'm going to live. And one of my friends, I remember this clear, Bill, he was like, we're never going to live like this. How can you make this much money? And I looked at him and I told him, that's why you'll never live like that, because you don't believe you will. Now, I didn't read all these books yet. I didn't know that I was doing all the right stuff. I was just doing it innately natural for whatever reason, But I told him, and I told my mom and my dad and my brother, my sister, and my friends that I was going to be rich and live in one of these neighborhoods. And I would drive around the neighborhoods. And then when I got in Primerica, I know this isn't a Primerica Zoom, but when I got in Primerica is when I really started to correlate things. Like when I would drive in these neighborhoods and I would look at this house and I would think, okay, this mortgage is probably 10 grand a month. And then the bills are, so it's 18 grand a month. How much would I need to make in order, to live here? How many vice presidents would I need? How much recruiting would I need to have going on? How much premium would I need to have going on? How much investment volume would I need to have going on? And that's where I really started to link everything. And I got all the years of wanting to own a business. I understood when I joined Primerica, which was after college. Okay. So even in college, I didn't get it. It's amazing. You go to college, you spend all this money, you don't learn crap. And that's when I started to link everything to building a business. If I build a business large enough, it'll pay me enough money to live wherever I want to live, drive whatever I want to drive, travel wherever I want to travel, and live the life I've always dreamt of. So I started very early. I was a dreamer and I was a talker. Now, you might view talking as a negative, not you, Bill, but in general. And when I was talking about it, the wrong people would view it like, oh, he's just bragging. I would tell you, I wasn't bragging because I was broke. So it wasn't like I was rich and bragging about, being rich. I was talking about what I was going to do. I was talking it into existence. I wasn't talking it to tell anybody else. I was brainwashing me. The more that I heard it, the more times that I drove to those neighborhoods and looked at those homes, I started to learn the streets and the addresses of the homes. Like when this house goes on the market, I'm going to buy it. The house I'm living in today, Bill, I lived right up the block here. I watched them build this house. I watched them build it from the ground up. And I would tell people, I would tell my wife, I'm going to live in that house right there one day. Whenever that house is on the market, and last year during COVID, it went on the market and I negotiated a hell of a deal and I'm in here, So I think most people talk their way out of getting rich with this negative talk that they have. Like, I'll never be able to do that. And I'll never be able to travel like that or live there or this. And you know what? You're right, because you're going to talk you right out of believing you could do it. And if you don't believe you could do it, you'll never put the work effort that it takes, because it's hard to do. You got to work really hard. But when you believe the end and you know that that's where you'll end up, then you'll go do the work. But when you don't believe the end, you go, the worth isn't worth doing. I don't know if that's logical or if I'm rambling on, Bill. What do you think?
Well, I think you're logical. The issue is, have you decided to be rich, wealthy, have whatever that is? I remember, like you, driving through neighborhoods purposely, not accidentally, and looking at these beautiful homes to feed my appetite.
Yeah.
And I always admired rich people.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I remember, I wish I could, I just never had the gumption to knock on somebody's door and say, how did you get this house? How did you get rich? I always admired people that had a wad of money, wads. And Oprah Winfrey said, you can never, if you've ever been hungry, you can never be full. So when people have never decided to be rich, I sometimes question, apparently they've never been hurting financially. I mean, so bad, it's humiliating. They've never been ashamed. They've never been embarrassed. And almost as like in that movie, Gone with the Wind, as God is my witness, I'll never be poor again. There's got to have some emotional wrench come into you. And Carol and I were watching some biography the other day. I forgot even who it was about. And main motivation for continuing to want to make money was the fear of losing it and going back to that person. Mike Tuttle, he said, to this day, Bill, I'm not fearful, but I don't want to go back. It's again, because no one knows where you've been. I've seen where Mike grew up. I know how I grew up. I've heard how you grew up. And the only way out of that is to get rich. So rich is a decision. Rich is a choice. That's why Dennis Kimbrough calls it a wealth choice. And I heard this the other day that financial independence is different for different people. I heard John Lavin say, when you're 21, you move out of your parents' house, you think you're financially independent. And Art Williams says, and comment on this, what I've said so far, either you're financially independent or you're not. And Art Williams taught me and Bo Adams that unless you're rich, again, most people come here to make 100,000, 200,000. And I came here because I made up my mind. If I ever have an opportunity, I have to take that chance. And my first goal was to have $1 million put away. Why? Art Williams said it, 300,000, 30,000 a year. Mine was $1 million. That's 10,000, 100,000 a year. No one's got their thumb on you. Talk about that, Omar, and how it has to become almost an obsession, not something casual.
Well, number one, you need to be honest with yourself. Okay. I think this is one of the areas that a lot of people are dropping the ball. They think they're doing okay. Like they might have a job that pays them $120 a year, $150 a year. And they have low debt but they still got that thumb on them, right? They still got that job that is going to dictate their life. It's like it'll dictate where they are every hour, of the day or the week. You have to ask for days off of work to go on a trip or a doctor's appointment even, So you have to get honest with you. You have to look in the mirror and you got to say, I'm not okay. Because as long as you have the I'm okay, I'm good philosophy, you ain't never getting rich, ever. I mean wealthy, okay? I mean like us, okay? Tens of millions of dollars, never have to worry about it again, and you do whatever you want to do every day of the week, okay? Like we're leaving on vacation tomorrow. We got this unbelievable trip scheduled. It costs probably 30 grand at least, plus what I blow on the trip, My wife scheduled it all. I have no idea where we're going, what we're doing. I just know it's all Class A because my wife knows I will not travel any other way, okay? So you got to decide. You have to come, to the realization you're not okay. And then you got to choose to be rich. You have to look at where you're at. Where are you working? What are you doing? Is there a way to get rich doing what you're doing? Wealthy, whatever wealthy is. I think wealthy today is $10 million or more. Years ago, it was $1 million, $3 million, $5 million. I think today to be wealthy in the top 1% or, whatever that number is, I think you got to have $10 million cash. You got to have no debt, and you got to have a passive income coming in that allows you to live your quality of life you want. So under that definition, I'm there. You've been there for many, many, many moons. But I decided, like you, one of my goals was I decided to accumulate $1 million. How to do that? I lived under my means. I invested my money. I worked like crazy. I looked for opportunities, like in Primerica, I would meet people and I would think, this guy's a stud in what he does. I recruited a guy named Rick that was making $250,000 a year at his job. Most people wouldn't go try to recruit that guy. But since I had in my head, I'm going to get wealthy, $250,000 a year is not a lot of money and it's still a job. So, and I knew that he was talented and he was a good guy, and I recruited him and I trained him, and now he makes more than $250,000. He's at 400 grand a year now. And I've overridden him for millions of dollars in the process, right? So all that comes from a choice. If you're not going to decide to get wealthy. You're not wealthy. It's not going to happen on accident. It is a very, like, you have to plan it. I used to plan, okay, when will I accumulate $1 million? How much money do I need to invest per month over X number of years to get there? And in order to invest this much money per month, how much money do I need to earn? And in order to earn this much money per month, how large of a business do I have to have?
How many people recruited, code numbers, how many RVPs?
Right. And
you work backwards.
Right. Whereas today, people don't do that. I mean, I ask people, what's your goal? 10 by 10, 20 by 20. I'm like, what does that even mean, right? I used to have a goal of cash. And then you work backwards on what you got to do, what kind of business you got to do to make that kind of cash. But the reason the cash was the goal was my dream, my choice, my decision to get wealthy. Because if I was like everybody else, when I was making $250,000 way back in 2001, that's 20 years ago, right? I would have looked in the mirror and said, hey, I'm doing pretty good. I mean, 2001, if you were making $250,000 a year, I was like 30 years old. I had no debt then and no wife and no kids. I was doing great, but I decided, like you said, and like you said, very important, you gotta feed the beast. You gotta feed the beast. You gotta go look at those houses. I used to go drive cars. I used to visit different car dealerships because once they knew me and they knew I wasn't buying one, right? They'd ignore you. But I'd visit different car dealerships. I would rent a car. I would go in with rental keys and I tell them that I crashed my car, that I'm waiting on the check. It ought to arrive this week and I need a new car. So I'm looking around. Oh boy, they would really go out of their way, Bill, to help me then. And I got to drive the S-Class Benz and the SL and the BMWs and the Audis and all the nice cars. I was in the car feeding the beast. I was smelling the leather. I was like driving the car. Then I'd go driving my hunk of crap car. And that also like feeds the beast too, because after you drive a 120 grand car and you get in your 11 grand junker, you're like, what the hell am I doing in this thing, right? So it just feeds the beast. I used to do it with watches. I used to go to Mayors and look at Rolex watches, and they knew me after a while. They'd avoid me when I walk in. Nobody would walk up to me. So I'd have to visit another Mayors at another, mall. But you gotta feed the beast. I guarantee you that most people on this call, on the Zoom, are not doing that on a regular basis. Even now, it's crazy. I just moved into this house. They offered me $6 million for it 2 weeks ago, Bill. Somebody came and offered me $6 million for it. I said, I'm not even listing the house. How do you? He goes, we looked at it online because it was listed previously, and we'll offer you that cash, no appraisal, cash deal. I'm not moving out of this house, but I'm still looking on realtor.com for my next thing. So I'm still feeding the beast. I want a condo, not a little 2-bedroom condo. I want a penthouse on the ocean, right on the beach. Not only the beach, I want beach on one side, intercoastal on the other side, so I could have a boat, right? So I'm still feeding the beast. So I'm working out. How much more money do I need to make a month? I don't need to make any more money. I could go do it now. But if I want to keep investing, how much money I'm investing per month, which I do, how much larger of a business? So are you feeding the beast is the question, right? Or are you starving the beast? Because if you're starving the beast and you're not giving it anything to eat, it eventually, is skinny and weak. And, guys, you just got to understand what's available out there and stop rationalizing that you're okay. Even if you really think you're okay, you're not okay.
Omar, I took Think and Grow Rich seriously. I read that book several times, and I came to the formula that he told me, not us, me, that I had to repeat before I went to bed at night, and then when I woke up in the morning. And I did that for decades. And it goes like this. Mine was on page 72 of the book. My goal is to make X number of dollars. My faith is so strong I can now see the money before my eyes. I can touch it. I can feel it. I possess it. It awaits transfer to me at the time, and in proportion I deliver the service I intend to render return for it. Then I would say 400 recruits by $400,000 a month in premium through first generation creates $1 million year income. I'm awaiting a plan to obtain that goal, and I'll follow that plan when it is received. Before I went to bed at night, and when I woke up in the morning. And Art Williams taught me, then we have meetings on your notes, write your net worth number 100 times in your notes. And I did that. Art Williams taught me that. I think we struggle with the fact that it's like a muscle. You've got to nurture it. You got to feed it. I worked out this morning. I worked out yesterday. I mean, I don't want my body looking like a typical guy my age. I have to, work it. Same thing. The mind has got to be worked so you magnetize. He says in Think and Grow Rich, unless you can build a white heat burning desire to get wealthy, rich, it won't happen, because you get what the mind is fed. So one of the first things that has to happen is stop making apologies, right? Omar talk about this, for wanting to be rich. People apologize. They're embarrassed. They're ashamed. They feel like they're pariahs on society because the government is terrible at condemning rich people. They're terrible at it. You know why? They get rich by condemning the rich. And every one of those politicians are condemning the rich. There was a guy that was running for governor in Louisiana, and he went to a consultant and said, what do I have to do to become governor? He said, tell the people you're going to stick it to the rich people and you'll get elected. And he got elected, Huey Long. So talk about that. And you must deny and get over the thought that I'm embarrassed to tell people I want to get rich. Talk about that, Omar, and how you got to be feeding. You call it the beast. You got to be feeding your mind, not every now and then, every day. Talk about that, Omar.
I think it's even larger than that. I think you developing the mental toughness to not care what others, think about you, right? When all you're doing is worried about what everybody else thinks about you, right? That's why everybody's on Facebook and Instagram, and they're leaving these pictures of look at my great life, right? And they're taking these pictures, and none of their lives are great. If you have to advertise how great your life is, it's probably not that great, So you're worried about what everybody else thinks. I know Bill long enough. He doesn't worry about what anybody else thinks about him other than his wife, Carol, and his kids and his Lord. That's it, right? Other than that. So when you hear negative stuff about the rich people, and your example is spot on, the politicians are rich themselves, and they get on there and they got so many people fooled about they're going to go after the rich, right? And they're going to, listen, who do you think pays all the taxes in the country? The rich people do. Who do you think gives all the money to all the charities and the churches? The rich people do. Look at your own pockets. If you were brutally honest, how much money have you given away this year, right? It's probably zero to very little. I know Bill gives away a lot of money. I write a lot of checks, okay? We give away. So the rich people are not evil. You have to learn to not listen to the noise. The rich people create the jobs that the regular people enjoy and help them build their quality of life. You look at Bezos with Amazon. I don't particularly like the person, but I admire what he's done in creating Amazon and this big corporation where there's many people who are employed, and with their paychecks, they're buying homes to provide for their wife and kids, and they're living their quality of life. If it wasn't the rich guy created that, I mean, look at all the countries like Venezuela. There ain't no rich guys anymore. They all left because they were once one of the richest countries in the world, oil rich, and the government came in telling them, we're going to pay for everything and everything's going to be free. And all the more uneducated people, you know, they're like, yes, and they gave them the power, and the rich people left. And now they're eating cat food over there. It's terrible what's going on. And in Cuba, where my parents are from and my grandparents are from, Castro came in with all these promises of great health care and this and that. And even now you have stupid people in America that will tell you, well, Cuba's got great health care. They have no drugs there, no medicine. So even though you could go meet with a doctor for free, they have nothing to treat you with. You die. My friends in Canada who have free healthcare there, when they need healthcare, they fly to America and they pay for it here. So don't let the government fool you. There's nothing rewarding about being poor, and there's nothing evil about being rich. You have a choice: rich, poor, middle class. It's your choice in America. As long as we have America, there's a choice still to be rich, poor, or middle class. Don't kid yourself if you're in the upper middle class that you're rich. You're not. When you lose your job and that check stops, you're quickly poor again, okay? You've got to get wealthy. You have to come to the realization the only way to get free, the only way to really be happy, and it's not the money that makes you happy, it's what the money gives you, the choices, the freedom, the options to do what you want. Hector Lamarck's wife had breast cancer, and he brought her to this place in Arizona, and it was $250,000. They
100,000 just to get in the door. 100,000 for basic.
They don't take health insurance. They don't take government food stamps, okay? They take hard, cold cash. And if you don't got the cash, they don't let you in. Hector wrote the check. His wife is cured, hasn't had cancer in 12, 15 years. They go back once a year just to get checked out. But she's clear. And I know other people, the Yazapovics, and I mean, just a lot of people. Guys, tough times might happen to you or one you love. You're going to either have to be able to write that check or regret it. And when you regret it, what you normally do is complain about it and blame everybody else why this is happening to you. You live in America. I grew up lower middle class. Bill grew up poor, right? We made a decision to get rich. We worked a plan. We fed the beast all the time. We didn't listen to all the negative naysayers. We didn't listen to the politician, and that's all politicians, Republican and Democrat, all of them. They're all scumbags. I mean, pretty much all, not all of them, but the vast majority of them. And they just want to manipulate you. And you know when you don't get manipulated? When you're rich. When you're wealthy, you got your own mind. You can think for yourself. You're not scared of anything because you know you've got power over your life. When you don't got money, you don't got power. People say it's evil to love money. I don't love money, but I love what it gives me in America. Everything in America, everything you do every day of your life costs money. You flush your toilet in your house, there's a water bill attached to that. You run the air conditioner, there's an electric bill attached to that. You eat food, there's a bill for everything. Costs money. Nothing is free. So if you know nothing's free, then you want to get as rich as you could get so you could have whatever you want.
You know, when I grew up, the standard statement was, let the rich people pay for it. So if your mind is, I want the rich to pay for it, you'll never be rich. And you'll end up being a burden on somebody in life, in society. Let's talk about some of the things you can do. I'm going to list 4 things that I think need to be done for people to start accumulating and creating this money mindset. You heard me talk about years ago, Carol and I went to dinner with all our kids and their spouses, like 8 of them. And we took them out to the Music City Christmas program here in Dallas. And we paid for the dinner, and we went, it cost $8 to get for parking. We got a phone call. We don't have any money. I said, you've got 8 adults and none of you have $8 combined? Well, they don't take debit cards. The point is, you can't understand money if you use credit cards, debit cards, and never carry cash. Again, Think and Grow Rich says, I can touch it, I can feel it, I can taste it. You've got to be able to feel the cash.
It's in my pocket all the time.
Well, I'll show a picture after you finish talking in a bit of you and what you've done for your wife. But first thing I recommend people do is get $100 bill and add because you're not going to break $100 bills. I can't tell you how many $100 bills I have at my within reach. For I love cash. I love stacking it up. I remember as a kid, we used to have these cartoons and used to have Uncle Scrooge, or what it was, Donald Duck Scrooge, and he had a swimming pool full of money, and he would dive into the swimming pool full of money, and that's my vision. Right or wrong, don't judge me. See, we tend to want to judge people as an excuse so that we don't have to be challenged. Get $100 bill and how much cash you carry on with you all the time?
I at least got $2,000 on me cash, minimum.
I'm down to about 1,500. But they're all $100 bills. Why? I carry it to feed the beast, like you're talking about, to stimulate the thought process regarding money and cash. And one of our girls, Tony Alexander, who's putting this all together, has a great idea. Get $100 bill till you get $2,000, and then invest the $2,000, start over again. Because when you do that, you feel broke. And that's one of the things you can do. Second thing, you save yourself broke. I agonize over spending money. Agonize for years. Why? Because I could be putting that money in investments and having that money work for me and getting 20% return on it, or 15 or 12. Now there's a point in time where you don't have to, because I got a wife that doesn't have to, and she enjoys that, right? And so save yourself broke. What does that mean? Well, when I got a check for $1,000, this is before MAP, I write a check for $500 to my mutual fund. So I had $500 to live on. And so I get a check there's a guy in Dallas locally several years ago that made $70,000 on one transaction. What do you think he did for the next year and a half in the business? Nothing. He lived off of it. Guys, I'm going to sell my house so I can have some money so I can work the business properly. And when that money went away, he quit. And so save yourself broke. In other words, feel the pinch financially. Most people don't feel the pinch financially. They use their credit cards, which means what? Stop using your credit cards. Never, 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 never use a credit card. Why? People, well, I paid off monthly. Most people, you shouldn't do that until you're wealthy. Don't buy anything until you reach a savings goal. And I've got a watch at home. It's a Rolex, my first Rolex. Until I had like $100,000 put away in my mutual funds, I didn't buy my Rolex. And I bought it used, by the way. Paid $12,000 for it way back when. and I paid cash for it, bought it off a guy, a CPA, by the way, who was paid with a Rolex, and he didn't want to claim an IRS thing, so he sold it to me. He took the cash and invested it. The point is, pay cash for everything. When you go to a restaurant, don't pull out that credit card, pay cash. Again, get in that mood, because you know it's going through your head, and you're doing all this to feed the beast. Talk about that and some of the things that you did early on that you don't have to do anymore, but you did it at one time.
I did a lot of those exact things. Like I use cash. I like yanking out cash, paying cash. People look at me like I got one eye in the middle of my head when I yank out and pay cash. Last night I went out to dinner. The lady brought me the check. I gave her cash. She said, "I'll bring you change." I said, "No change." She looked at me, "Thank you," right? Nobody pays with cash anymore. So I paid cash. The only credit card I ever used was American Express. And that was just because they were business expenses, you know? And so rather than paying cash on that stuff, I used Amex. But Amex is you got to pay it off at the end of the month. I wiped out our credit card debts 23 years ago. I've not owed a credit card in 23 years. 1998 was my last credit card payment that I ever made, other than American Express. So I use cash. I always walked around with cash. I think having cash in your pocket makes you feel rich. And that's important. Not having cash in your pocket makes you feel poor. And that's not good. You're like, I don't feel poor when, like that $8 thing, when you pull up to a valet and they only take cash and you don't got $8, you feel poor. You're embarrassed by it, right? And if you're telling me you're not, you're lying to me, okay? So paid cash, credit card. I would every month in Primerica, I would look at my checking account and I would dwindle it all the way down to like $5,000. I would leave $5,000 in there, and the rest of it, I would mail it off to our investment accounts. That was the highlight of the month, when I could tell my wife, Danielle, come in here. And I would give her checks. This one goes, to this mutual fund, and this one goes to that mutual fund, and this one goes to that. And we'd invest $40,000 a month, $50,000 a month. I mean, when we were making $800,000, we lived on 200,000, paid taxes 200,000, and invested 400,000. And I was living in an apartment. That's another thing, is I didn't blow cash on stupid things. Nowadays, people buy these Gucci belts or these Hermes belts that are like $2,000, $3,000 for a belt. Why are you buying the belt? Because you want to impress other people. That's the old don't. Now, if you're wealthy and you want to spend it on a belt, no problem. But unless you got a couple $1 million put away, you shouldn't be dropping $1,000 on a belt, right? To impress anybody, because it's no different a belt than any other leather belt is, okay? So it's not like it'll make you skinny, okay? Because if it would make me skinny, I'd spend $1 million on a belt, okay? But the reality is they're just getting it to impress people. They're driving cars that they ought to not be driving to impress people. Hey, there's nothing wrong with a Honda Accord. Okay, why do you need the BMW? Because you want to impress a person, right? Now, I'm not telling you to not go look at the BMWs. Feed the beast. Have a net worth goal. When I get to this net worth, then I'm going to get that BMW or that Benz or whatever.
Not until you don't buy anything unless you have a net worth goal that you reach.
Right. You don't do it early. And that's the challenge is people buy homes early, drive nice cars early. They take time off of work in their business early. Like you said, if a rep has a good month, they luck out. I mean, they luck out and they hit this big rollover where they make 80 grand. They don't work for the next 6 months. Take the 80,000, pay 20 grand of it to the IRS, 60 grand of it, stick it in your mutual fund and get back to work. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? So I would have goals, net worth goals, income goals, whenever I purchase a big item. Our house, our last house, I told my wife we're going to rent this apartment on until we've got $2 million. People are like, are you crazy? You'll never have $2 million. And I said, well, that's why you'll never have $2 million, but I will have $2 million. And I had that, and I purchased that house. When I moved into that house, I told myself and wrote it down, $10 million is the next number. I'm not moving out of this house until I got $10 million. That was the deal. I was going to live there, you know? So all those are things people don't do. They don't pay cash. They don't walk around with any cash. They live on credit cards, debit cards. These are all poor habits, right? They want it now. Whatever the reward is, they want it now. They think, I deserve this, Bill. I deserve this trip. I deserve this new car. You don't deserve shit until you hit your net worth goal, right? Then you deserve everything that was on your plan, right? Stop with the I deserve, and start talking about, listen, I want to live a long life. I want to live to age 100. I'm like halfway there. The Lord has blessed me with good genes. My relatives live a long time. I'm like 51 years old now. I'm on no medication, no cholesterol pills, no blood pressure pills. My doctor tells me that I'm an anomaly, okay? My blood pressure is 120 over 80. I don't even wear reading glasses, okay? But if I died early, because I'm planning to live, to 100, but if I died, if the Lord takes me, one of my biggest goals that I ever had, the minute I got married, I had to go, if anything happened to me, my wife would never have to worry about anything economically related. I remember my wedding day, and I was at the altar, and they opened the doors, and my wife walked out in this beautiful dress, and I was just like, how am I getting lucky enough to marry her? I got to do a really good job here, right? And then when I had my kids, I was like, man, if anything happens to me, I need to make sure that they're good, right? And so early on, what do you do when you don't have the money? You have a lot of life insurance, because if you die, it's there for them, right? Now, if the Lord took me tomorrow, Bill, my wife, my kids would never have to worry about anything. They got this house that's worth $5 million. They'll have no mortgage on it. They got $13 million, and they got a Primerica business paying them $1.5 million a year in overrides. They'll never have to worry about a thing. That's what I was giving up the new car for and the house for. That's why I wasn't doing all those other things early, was because I had bigger goals that were more important to me than a stupid belt or a watch or a car. I had all that stuff after I hit goals. So, and I know you were the exact way. I mean, and I know you're going to live to age 100 too, buddy, at least, right?
Well, I just read recently where somebody, some movie star lived 106. Kirk Douglas lived 103. So I've reset my goals.
Well, I don't know. Kirk Douglas looked like he was dead about 10 years ago. So he was pretty damn scary. I don't know.
Well, I hopefully I will look better. But, one of the things is frugal versus cheap. Cheap is, I don't want to work any harder. I want to be cheap so I don't spend as much money, so I don't have to work any harder. I don't have to make any more money. Frugal is, I can invest that money. I'm going to buy something that gets the job done so I can invest that money. Big difference. I buy things economically so I can save money, so I can invest it to be rich down the road, versus, if I can get my wife to stop spending as much money, I don't have to work any harder. I don't have to have any more appointments. I don't have to have more Zooms. Talk about that, Omar, and how most people, and then I tell you what, Tony, do you have those pictures? Tony's got some pictures she wants to share with you. And what is that, Omar, on the left?
That's my wife holding a present that I gave her, one anniversary. I'd already given her jewelry and watches and perfumes and trips. And I said, you know, one time I'm going to give her a wad of cash and just let her blow it any way she wants. So that was an anniversary present. That's her nails right there in the picture.
How much is that, by the way?
I believe that was 10 grand.
You know, here, think about $1 million. You get $100 bills and get 10 of them. That's $1,000. 1,000 of those is $1 million. And imagine a table with stacks of $1,000, 1,000 of them. Think about maybe a gym floor. There's your vision of what $1 million looks like. That's how you encapsulate. Someone sent this to me. I don't think it was you, but I keep these images. I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of images like this of cash, because I like cash. No one will turn down cash. The mind, the beast, like you're talking about, needs to be fed this. Thank you very much, Tony. You know, last week it was July 4th weekend, and I went to the airport and went to valet, and I says, well, do you have a reservation? I said, no. He said, well, I'm sorry, we're short on staff. Unless you have a reservation, you're gonna have to go park the car yourself on top and in 100-degree weather. And I think there might be 3 or 4 spaces up there. If not, I gotta go to remote parking. I looked at him, I said, I've got $50 cash right here. If you can get me a reservation. He said, I can handle it right now.
Hey, Bill.
See the point? Most people would have, because they don't have $50 cash out of it, they don't think like that. Talk about
Bill.
frugal and cheap. Yeah.
Hey, Bill, right there, I bet you half the audience, when you brought that up, half the audience said, see, rich people are evil. He bribed that guy. You didn't bribe him.
That guy loved it.
You just motivated him. You motivated him to do what you wanted him to do. That's what
I can handle it right now. I bought happiness for me right there and happiness for him.
And him too. Listen, one time I went to my bank to withdraw $250,000 cash, because I wanted to look at it. They didn't have it. I said, what do you mean? In this institution, this banking, we don't have $250,000? So I said, sir, no, calm down. I said, what? My money's in this bank. Where's my money? I'm just screwing with the guy, right? He says, you need to request it. And then we need to order it. And then we need to bring it in. And I said, okay, request it. When will I get it? Oh, 2 days. Okay. So one of our reps, Lawrence Cook, who was an officer at the time, I asked him, hey, I'm going to go get $250,000 cash. I need you to walk with me as my bodyguard. And we're going to bring it to the office, stack it up on the desk, and we're going to let everybody take pictures with $250,000 cash. And so we did that. We actually went in there. They were all nervous, giving me the money. Like, what are you going to use it for? I'm like, none of your business. I'm going to do a drug deal. Who cares? I mean, it doesn't matter what you're going to do. So I'm not going to do a drug deal. Obviously, I was joking. So we left with a briefcase full of cash. We went over to our office, which is right up the block, stacked it up on the desk, and we let people take pictures of them at my desk with $250,000 in like a pyramid, right? And then right after, I stacked it in the briefcase. Lawrence rode over with me. He was armed, and I brought it right back. And the branch manager says, what happened? I go, I just wanted to use it like for an hour to take some pictures as a prop. He thought that was the funniest thing.
Well, I'll tell you something. I'll never forget, somebody said, a lot of people want to show you their big house, big car. I can show you. Art Williams said, you recruit people by your paycheck and your mutual fund statement. And so I've got about 5 more minutes and I've got to leave to catch a plane. finalize your last thoughts, Omar, and what do you think people should, what's an action point from this point?
Well, like you said, I would tell everybody, go get $100, a $100 bill, and then about $100 worth of 20s. Wrap the $100 bill over the 20s, right? Because you're not going to spend the $100 bill, but you just want to start looking at it. You want to start looking at it every day. Put it in your pocket, know what it feels like, take it out when you pay. I would totally start budgeting. What do you spend a week? And quit using credit cards. Have a cash budget so you don't overspend, and you'll become more aware of what you're spending. It's very easy to spend on a credit card, but when you're using cash, you're like, holy crap, that just cost $50, because when you got to take it out of your pocket and give it to them, it's different than if you just use a credit card, right? So I would tell you that's a immediate point. If you want to get wealthy, that's that's something you should start doing right away. And you should run your F&A. Everybody, you're all in the business pretty much. You need to run your own F&A, and you need to get out of debt, and every debt. Not like mortgage is okay. No, mortgage is still a debt. Car loans are okay. No, it's still a debt. College loans are okay. It's still a damn debt. Get out of debt where you owe nobody any money, and live on a budget, and invest most of the max you can. Most of you guys are not even maxing out a Roth IRA, okay? And if you were maxing out a Roth IRA with you and your wife, or you and your husband, that's 12 grand a year, $12,000 a year. That's $1,000 a month that will grow tax-free. And when you withdraw it, you'll withdraw it tax-free. And the way the government's going, you're gonna want as much tax-free money as possible, okay?
And your kids too.
And your kids, if you die, when you die, you can leave that money tax-free, okay? So I would tell you, cash in hand, weekly budget, run your F&A, get a plan to get out of debt and start maxing out your Roth IRAs. And if you're like, I don't have the money to do that, change that. Go work harder. Have a damn goal, man. Stop being average and ordinary. I would tell you that you're not okay wherever you're at. Maybe you're making 200 grand on this call, and you have a job, and you're like, he's not talking to me because I make 200 grand. No, I'm talking to your broke ass that makes $200,000 a year. Okay.
I love it.
Because 200 grand after income taxes, and then mortgage and wife and kids and living expenses, there ain't a whole lot left. You got to make money. This is America, home of the brave, land of the free. And this is the biggest place where its opportunity is all around us. The immigrants that come here work harder than the people that have lived here all their lives. And the reason is the immigrants know what it's like on the other side. My grandparents were immigrants. They owned businesses. They moved here and they started cleaning houses because that's the only work they were able to get. They eventually owned a business here in America. They eventually own their own home with no mortgage here in America, right? So if you grew up here, you've got a challenge. You don't know what it's like, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, if we don't start changing this, we're going to learn what it's like in those other countries, right? And if you're not rich at that time, you're going to really regret it. So this is your chance. This is your opportunity. Stop thinking small and start thinking big.
Thank you very much, Omar. Again, you're land of the free because you're brave. If you're not brave, you're not going to be free. Omar, well, our next session of Money Quest is going to be on the 13th of August, Friday, August the 13th. Omar, this has been great. If nobody else was on the call, I want to do this because I just love the subject, and I need to feed this beast because it's a way of life now. Thank you very much, Omar. God bless everybody.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye-bye.
You have a good one.